On the 16th of November, Toorak Uniting Church celebrated 150 years of ministry in this place. It was a magnificent service of music, praise, and eloquent preaching. The preacher, the Reverend Dr. James Donaldson, told us a story about a man who had fallen off a cliff. And on the edge of the cliff was a tree. And the man fortunately fell onto the tree and grabbed hold of a branch, hanging on. And he looked up and he called, "Help! Is there anyone else up there?" This story is actually a satirical joke. A voice came back, God was offering help. But first the man had to answer 3 questions: whether he loved God, whether he trusted God, and believed that God would meet all his needs. The man, I don't know if he had a choice, but he said, "Yes, I believe, I love you, I trust you." And God replied, "Let go." Some of them laughed in the congregation then too. You can laugh if you want to. The man was terrified, so he called out, "Is there anyone else up there who could help me?" Sitting in the pew that day, I asked myself, what is the branch I am hanging on to? What is the branch that we are hanging on to? We all face cliff edges in our lives, and we cling to things. And I believe it's just as important to think of the branch as to think about the letting go. They go together. And sometimes we are holding onto things with a vice grip so tight. We've turned it tight by our fears, the familiar, the uncertainty, our diminishing trust, and we held fast to what we're holding on to. We are actually trapped. For example, in the Western Church faces a cliff edge. We are growing smaller and smaller. And we must close some of those churches. We have no choice. And we want God to rescue us. And it seems that we see salvation in certain terms for the church. We have a cry for the need to have members. We need to get new members. So if you're new here, hang on, we'd like to sign you up. But don't worry, I won't be signing you up. You see, I don't believe we need new members. I believe we need new missionaries, people who will share their faith, who are equipped to share their faith, and share their faith, not tell people what to do. We have an example in this denomination. Our synod says we have a shortage of ministers. We don't have a shortage of ministers. We have a surfeit of small churches that can no longer be sustained. Joseph and Mary came to a cliff edge, one of those cliff edges of life. They were getting ready to go home, thinking of returning to the place, Nazareth. But their dream is dashed. They're falling off the cliff edge of a tyrant king's autocratic power. What could they do? Hang on to the security of their family, hope nothing happens? Hang on to their friends, hang on to their home, go back to Joseph's work? They had a choice to make. They let go of the branches they could have clung to. Instead, they trusted the prophetic words of foreign wise men. They trusted Joseph's dream. that said, leave. Leave and go to Egypt. That's a long way to go. They'd never been to Egypt before, but they knew Egypt was beyond the power of King Herod. They knew that Egypt was part of the Roman Empire. They knew that God had led Israel and his family to Egypt and saved them from a great famine. They knew God had rescued the people from slavery, the Exodus out of Egypt. And those ancient Hebrew people became comfortable, complacent in Egypt and ended up as slaves there. They had to be rescued. And God gave them Moses, Aaron, and Miriam and rescued them. You can see all the branch changing in that. Joseph and Mary knew God had been faithful in the past, and they trusted God now. They moved from the branch of despair to the branch of faith in God. What cliff edge did the wise men face? They had come from the east. They were people who studied the night skies. Their ancient charts are still looked at today by astrologists for their accuracy. They were scientists in their own right. They mixed the science of astronomy with astrology. But they'd noticed in the night skies in 11 BCE or BC, the Halley's Comet passing the earth. They noticed that the morning dog star, the star of a prince, had shone very brightly in the final decades of BCE. They noticed that the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in 7 BCE and a supernova in 4 BCE all led these wise men to consider that a significant prince had been born. They looked, they read, and they went to Judea. That was the place to go to and ask the king. Now, having found the baby, been asked by the king to return and tell him where the baby is, they were warned, don't do that. Herod will kill the baby. A threat to his kingdom. A prince. Instead of hanging on to the branch of not telling the truth, they told the truth. They did not hang on to the branch of diplomatic safety. They let go of holding on to that, and they went under the threat that if they were caught, they would have been punished. They held on to and moved to, rather, the branches of truth and what is right. They came and told Joseph and Mary, and they took another road home, avoiding seeing King Herod again. Why do we in life hang on to branches like that? Can you begin to see them in your life? Maybe our families or our job or our wealth or a profession or something like that. It could even be to God or the Bible. It gives us a sense of control when we're hanging on. But the control is an illusion. We should not underestimate the illusion of control. We think that if I lose control, we won't be okay. And that's so true of so much of life. It is an illusion, not a reality. And here is the problem. Holding on doesn't protect us, it traps us. Our fear of losing control traps us in a way of being, of thinking. The trap freezes us, freezes our ability to think clearly, to look at another opportunity, to change branches and go to through another redirection of our lives. When we hold on fast, we are not able to tell the difference between control and captivity. Consequently, we stay in unfulfilling jobs because they have stability. We tolerate toxic relationships because they feel familiar. We may even hold on to grief, believing that if we stop mourning, we are betraying the person, our loved one, or the past we've lost. We hold on to old patterns of religion because they're familiar and comfortable, because we know how they work. Letting go is not killing hope. It is redirecting our hope to something that is more hopeful. So when Joseph and Mary let go of their home in Nazareth, their family and friends and security of the familiar, where they had some control, they were handing themselves over to God, who had redirected them to a new branch, so to speak. And that branch supported by the wise men. Wise men, as I said, were foreigners to them. The perception, what was going on politically, Joseph's dream that confirmed that they needed to go, they let go and let God direct them. Letting go of something is not losing control, but moving on to something better. And we need to let go and let God build our futures, either individually or collectively as a community. It won't be perfect, but it will be better, most likely, most probably better. Because while we are holding on trapped by our fears and our uncertainty, we are not going forward. We will be in another space, and that will help us go forward, especially if we go forward together. And we will lay the seeds for those who follow to also let go and rebuild their future. We will be part of that too, because we've done it before. Letting go is redirecting our hope to something more secure. So as we hear these stories today, and we think of the end of this year and our time where we may have some refreshment and recuperation of the holiday, we will go forward. But we could also examine, what are we hanging on to that we don't need to hang on to? What are we hanging on to that is holding us back? Where might God be calling us to move forward to?